Forget Bitcoin, these guys invest in magic cards. Rudy stands in front of his regal mahogany bookcase stocked full with classics like the Iliad, the Odyssey, and Arabian Nights. He holds a shrink-wrapped booster box parallel to his messy plume of hair. It's Dark Ascension, the 57th expansion for the card game Magic the Gathering. Anytime I could get these boxes for $70 and below, I was buying 'em, because nobody wanted 'em, he says, eyes downcast while he paces back and forth. I was like, how is nobody seeing this? Why are these prices still where they are? A lot of people don't have the ability to see the distance. They don't have that ability to really see everything. Rudy swings the camera around to reveal a cardboard wall built from a phalanx of Dark Ascension boxes. Hundreds of them, stacked to the ceiling, blotting out the light from the windows. Rudy the Magic Guy is the most prominent figure in Magic the Gathering's financial underbelly. His vlog, Alpha Investments, hosts 102,000 subscribers. Some are attracted to his trenchant, occasionally profane analysis of the twists and turns of the secondary magic market, where pieces of a children's card game sell for hundreds of dollars. Others, like me, are simply intrigued by the ridiculous success of his craft. In some videos he flexes the glut of 20-year-old game store boxes laying dormant and unopened in his garage. Sometimes he offers introductory advice, like the benefits of investing in single cards versus factory-sealed packs. But my favorite, by far, is when Rudy documents his trips to Magic conventions across the country, where bright-eyed customers plunk down a couple Benjamins for the privilege of cracking open one of the vintage boosters he sells. The foil wrapping is seductive, maybe the cards inside are worthless, or maybe there's a $1,000 tabernacle waiting to be unearthed. Nobody, not anybody, was considering investing into a kid's card game. It was almost humorous, says Rudy, over the phone, reflecting on how he bought into the Magic collectible industry in 2004. Nobody gives me a hard time or questions it like they did 10 years ago. Magic the Gathering wasn't always a collector's item. In the early 90s a scientist named Richard Garfield approached game publisher Wizards of the Coast with an idea for a board game called Robo Rally. They turned him down, because his prospective design was too expensive for the company's then meager production capabilities, but they asked if he could come up with something lighter and faster to play. Garfield returned with the concept for a collectible card game, CCG, in which players would tear open randomly sorted booster packs in hopes of unwrapping powerful cards to add to a store-bought starter deck. Magic the Gathering made its debut in the July of 1993, and by the end of the summer Wizards had already sold out of their initial 2.6 million card print run. Fads pass through the global nervous system all the time without appreciating any real value. Nobody is throwing money into Pogs in 2017. But Magic has remained consistently popular over the last 24 years. One of the key things that keeps its value stable is a corporate decree called the Reserved List. In 1996, Wizards guaranteed that a handful of cards from the game's earliest sets would never be printed again in a functionally identical form. This decision was made after a disastrous 1996 expansion called Chronicles. Essentially, the Chronicles set included some cards that were reprinted from previous Magic runs, thus flooding the market with duplicates and torpedoing the profit margins of the rares and uncommons sitting in early investors' collections. Plenty of people who don't enjoy the disposable income necessary to buy their way into a goldmine of alpha rares still manage to make money in Magic. Chronicles caused a fallout, like, hey, you're reprinting these valuable cards that I collected. What the hell? Says Daniel Chang, president and CEO of VintageMagic.com, one of the preeminent ultra-rare Magic marketplaces on the internet. The reserved list was basically a promise to the community. In the mid-90s, the most expensive Magic cards were worth a couple $100. In 2017, the company still maintains the reserved list, and the value of the cards included on it has exploded. Rudy explained this to me in our interview. The very high-end individuals, the people who trade with $100,000 and up to $1 million, They tend to only go with the vintage 1993-94 printing of Magic. They want Alpha or Beta, the Magic community's nickname for the game's first 2 print runs, or they want Arabian Nights, Antiquities, or Legends, the game's first 3 expansions. These are all on the reserved list, and are all extremely low printed, he says. There were about 1,100 copies of each Alpha Rare printed, and there's estimated to be about 500, of each, left in existence. That means if someone like me owns 50 to 100 of something like that, you can start cornering the market pretty easily. Take the Magic card Black Lotus, effectively the Shakespeare's signature of Magic cards. It is monstrously powerful, a relic of the game's old-fashioned 90s imbalance, and because of the reserved list, it was only printed in those rickety early sets. You could play the Black Lotus from your hand for free and immediately tap it to gain 3 mana, of any color, into your pool. The combo potential is so sickening that in Magic's traditionally laissez-faire vintage format, which allows players to build their decks from practically every Magic set that's ever been released, it's forbidden to include more than 1 Lotus in your deck list. Video of a collector finding a Black Lotus. Chang can remember a time when Black Lotuses were pushed around card shops for $50, or blithely traded for mediocre creatures by people who didn't respect its power. Things are different now. In 2013 a 9.5 graded Alpha Black Lotus sold for $27,000 at auction. Today it goes for around $15,000. There are plenty of reasons for this. It's powerful. It's iconic, the art is beautiful, but most importantly, Wizards of the Coast's mandate makes sure that the card will only get scarcer as time goes on. Rudy reflected on the reserved list, musing that its artificially guaranteed rarity wouldn't fly in a different medium. In the world of cardboard it's deemed hilarious, because nobody in the real world takes it seriously. Which is why I think Magic is, by far, the best playground in existence. Both Rudy and Daniel Chang have diverse backgrounds outside of Magic the Gathering. Chang has sold sports collectibles, Rudy worked in a brokerage firm and played around with mutual funds and the stock market. Both of them prefer investing in reserved list Magic cards instead of the modern card blocks that are printed and played with today, because the prices on the old stuff are a lot less volatile. There's an estimated 10 million Magic players in the world, and most of them play with the newer cards, what they call standard, says Rudy. Overall, those are not investable assets. They're reprintable. When they spike in price, Wizards will purposefully reprint them to chop it back down. So that's not where investors tend to go after, because even when it goes up, you're going to get hit. Unsurprisingly, that rigidness makes the reserved list a little controversial. Magic the Gathering is the most popular tabletop game in the world, and yet there are only 13,000 copies of some of the reserved list cards in circulation. That ensures an environment where a huge swathe of the player base will never get the chance to play with, say, a Black Lotus or a Time Walk. If I had my way, the solution to this problem would be getting rid of the reserved list altogether, wrote Saffron Olive on his blog Goldfish, noting that Wizards' enforced rarity specifically benefits investors and venture capitalists instead of ordinary players. Olive explains that the majority of cards on the reserved list have a value of less than $5 and recommends peeling those cards out of quarantine. I would argue that cutting down the reserved list significantly would actually bring the reserved list more in line with what it was originally intended to do, writes Olive. The list would still protect collectors, longtime players with huge collections of older cards, and current legacy, vintage players by keeping cards that truly are collector's items as collector's items. That being said, plenty of people who don't enjoy the disposable income necessary to buy their way into a goldmine of alpha rares still manage to make money in Magic. A lot of small-time sharks on the secondary market have adapted to a bazaar without the rubber stamp of the reserved list guiding the path. Tarkan Dospel is one of them. He's an executive at Quiet Speculation, a for-profit software hub that combines advanced analytics with tried and